Hello and welcome to The Art of Pointy Things, a channel where I discuss my adventures in knitting, sewing, embroidery and other similar crafts. I am Dusty and today I'm doing the 6th episode of my monthly knitting and creating podcast, detailing what I've been making in the last month since I saw you. Due to actually recording at the beginning of the month this time, I don't actually have a lot of progress to show you, but hopefully you will enjoy what I do have. Quick note, the jumper I'm wearing today is my usual Christmas jumper. But it is unfortunately fast fashion. I did not make this. But I've had it for years and it's really quite hard wearing given that it cost I think like £8. I bought it before I sort of really understood the value of what clothing should really cost. So anyway, on to things I've made and on to finished objects. Let's start with some gift knitting. So Christmas has already passed, however, due to some scheduling misunderstandings and conflicts, I have not actually given my parents their Christmas gifts yet, which you get to benefit from because you actually get to see what these finished socks look like. So, as I mentioned in the last one, I am knitting a lot of my family very plain socks using self-striping yarn. So, the pattern just out is the Favourite Socks by Kristen from Wool and Vine Yarns, which is for 4-ply. So these are knit up with the West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply. This is in the Robin for the self-striping and the Nutmeg for the special bits. And then this is Blue Tit with Juniper for the contrast colour. I've talked on these in length before. I knit these on 2.5mm metal DPNs. So they've been blocked, they've been trimmed, everything's ready to go. I just thought that because I get to actually film another episode before they get them, that I'd show you especially what these ones look like, because you've seen these ones before but you haven't seen these ones. First thing out of the way. The second thing I have finished knitting is a hat, which I don't think I had started last time. I think I had alluded to knitting a hat, but I don't think I had actually started it. This took me a week. So this is the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. It's just a 1x1 rib hat that has a 6-point decrease up to the crown. I did make a small alteration to the pattern, so it's meant to be a lot longer and then you cuff the bottom of it, but I don't really like that, so instead I did a bit of maths and figured out how long I wanted it to be before I got to the decreases and just made it a bit shorter rather than the size the pattern recommended. So this the yarn for this is the West Yorkshire Spinners Colour Lab DK, which is 100% wool. I don't think it's superwash wool, but it doesn't say, which means it probably isn't superwash, because normally it says if it's superwash. So I have to be careful washing this. But yeah, it's a really great pattern, really sort of simple, basic hat. I think I might make some more different colours. I have some different colours of some DK weight sitting around. So yeah, I said it's a DK weight wool, didn't I? So the yarn is the West Yorkshire Spin. I just said what the yarn was, didn't I? So I actually have weighed this. I don't normally mention how much, but this took about half a ball. I still have sort of half a ball of yarn here. They both weigh about 50 grams. It's a 100-gram ball, so I could theoretically get another hat, but I'm thinking of actually trying to make a matching pair of ribbed mittens, which are relatively simple. So maybe not, we'll see. But I knit it on 3.25mm circulars using the magic loop. But yeah, it's very much what it says in the tin, a classic rib hat. Right. So that's it for knitting finished objects. I do have a sewing finished object, but it is sort of knitting related, and it is a project bag. So last month I showed that I bought this Christmas sheep fabric, and I decided, I was like, oh, I'll turn it into a project bag. And you probably noticed the amount of things I bought and then never actually made up. And I actually did it this time. I made a project bag. So I followed a pattern that I found online for free, but it is a bit smaller. I'll link the pattern below in the description, but this one is a bit smaller because what I did was I transferred all of the dimensions into inches, from inches into centimetres, and then I had some wrapping paper that had what I thought were 1 centimetre squares on the back, and I was like, therefore I just counted out the squares and cut the pattern out. And it was only when I was then cutting the fabric out, the pattern, that I actually measured the squares and found that they were in fact 0.8 centimetres. I have no idea why. I don't really. So it's 80% of the size it's meant to be. But it still sort of holds a pair of socks for knitting, so good for all the gift knitting I've been doing. There's a pair of socks in there. We'll get to that pair of socks in a moment. So yeah, I've got the Christmas sheep fabric, I've got red, and then I decided to line it in green just to be extra Christmassy. So it's just a green, got little leaves on it, it's just a green fabric I had in my stash, same with the red. And it's also got some pockets on the inside that I think you can see. The pattern originally didn't call for pockets, but adding pockets is just fun, and it's a good place just to stash things like stitch markers, scissors, needles if I'm at that stage in the project. What else? Oh, it's also, the pattern was originally it had poppers on it, so you put poppers there and it pops. But I prefer drawstring bags for this sort of thing. So what I did was, before I added the lining, when I had just the outer fabric, I added a buttonhole where, once I turned the top in, I figured out where the buttonhole would go, not near the seam. And then when I had everything assembled, I ran a line of stitching just below the buttonhole and then threaded a drawstring through. There are lots of different ways to add drawstrings to things that weren't meant to have drawstrings. One of them is often to use the seam, but I often find that that's actually quite a weak way of doing it. So you sort of basically unstitch part of the side seam, but I've always found that's actually quite weak and leads to a lot of fraying, especially depending on how you finish up the inside edges. But this way you can't get to the inside edges, there's not a risk. I feel there's less of a risk using I use the buttonhole stitch from my sewing machine, so it's very secure. Yeah. So that's that. So as I said, it fits a pair of socks in, which basically then leads me on to my works in progress, which, if you've watched a few episodes back, you will recognise these, probably from the colour. These are my Owlie Socks by Julie Elswick Schumel. So it's got little cabled owl motifs on them. And I am partway through the heel flap at the moment. So these are cuff down, heel flap, gusset socks, which is my preferred method of knitting socks, so it's not too out of the way for me. And yeah, I'm just making progress. Because of all the gift knitting I wanted to get done, and a lot of it ended up sort of quite close to when I wanted it finished. And then I've sort of been needing a hat, so this got put to the side a bit. But I'm hoping now that I finish the hat, this should come back out as a sort of one of my more main projects, which is why it's in basically the only proper project bag I own. So the yarn is an 80% superwash BFL, 20% bamboo yarn from Chester wool that I dyed myself using rhubarb leaves and nettles. So there's a video you can go check out where I do that. Not that great really as a video, but before you go check it out. Yeah, but I'm really excited and looking forward to getting these done. As I've said previously, I'm not putting the beads in. I might go back later and duplicate stitch in the eyes so they have eyes. I'm also holding them upside down, which probably doesn't help. But it's a really pretty cable pattern, and I love cables and textures and things like this, so I'm absolutely loving it. Oh, you have also probably noticed, if you have watched previous episodes, which statistically you probably haven't, this was previously on 2.5mm wooden DPNs, and I have swapped now onto these, which I bought myself as a bit of a gift. These are 2.5mm circulars. They're Knit Pro Zing, I think. No idea where the packaging is, but I just thought I've never tried magic loop on socks before. I normally just use my 2.5mm DPNs, metal or wooden. So these are actually one of the first I've knit on these. It's going well so far. I think with the cabling, this makes it a lot easier, which is why I got them. I was struggling a bit. I wasn't struggling with the cabling. The cabling was not difficult. It was just it could have been easier. So that's why I got these, and it has actually helped. So if you're struggling with something, lace, cable, whatever, do consider trying out different needles styles, whether they be metal, wooden, and see where you end up. So that's those two. I do have another knit sort of in progress, sort of not, which is I've mentioned before, and I have previously, I knit a tank top basically using my gauge and my measurements to come up with a tank top design, and I've said before that I've wanted to knit a vest, sort of a sweater vest style thing, using the same technique, and this is the gauge swatch for it. So unfortunately it's quite a dark colour, so good luck getting any detail from this, but it's seed stitch. I decided I wanted to sort of have a textured, slightly stretchy garment, so I went for seed stitch. This is on 3.75mm needles, and the yarn is Holst Super Soft held double. I had a bit of an internal debate as to whether I wanted to hold it double or not, and I eventually did settle on double. And I do quite like the fabric it's made. The one thing I haven't done is I haven't washed this yet. So if you don't know, Holst comes with the spinning oil still in. It's not been washed after spinning, so you have to wash it yourself, and that'll give me a lot better idea of how the fabric works. And once I've washed it, I can then measure the gauge more accurately, and then I can use that to come up with the pattern I want to make. So because the way I'm doing it, it's very important that I do knit it in the stitch I want to use, which in this case is seed stitch, which is knit one, purl one, and then if you're knitting in the round, you then purl one, knit one. So you alternate whether you knit and purl in each row, and it's knit one, purl one. And it gives sort of this cross. I really like it. It's textured and very interesting. So that's what I'm up to. I have had a bit of interest before, and so I probably will video how I come up with the pattern. It won't be instructional, it'll just be how I do it. You are welcome to mock me and tell me I'm doing it wrong. But that's kind of the plan. So I've got the swatch, and I need to wash the swatch. And then, yeah, so I've got a cone of Holst. This is in the vintage heather colour, so it's quite a dark blue, but it's a bit mottled blue. It's not like a solid colour. Heathered, I think it's called, isn't it? Heathered? No, the colour is vintage heather. Yeah, it might be. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to doing that. That should be fun. That finishes off the actual knitting content. As I said, not a lot of time has passed since the last episode because I ended up recording almost 2 weeks into the month by the time I recorded and then uploaded it. So hopefully this will come out more beginning of the month, and we'll reset to the beginning of the month with more videos. Which I feel I should mention that I should have recently uploaded a video about dyeing a skein of yarn with red onion. This is actually one of the skeins that I dyed up. I had 3. This is one of them that has been, yep. So feel free to go and watch that if you're interested. But that's sort of something I've been up to this month, and I've actually put a video out. I've also made another short of me knitting the 1x1 rib for the hat, actually. I'm sort of experimenting with shorts. They're not very good at the moment. I'm struggling a bit with how I film them with my setup. Because it's very hard to film with a camera to get the nice picture quality and then upload it in the vertical format. I'm struggling a bit with that. It doesn't sound like something you should be struggling with, and I'm probably doing it wrong. So if you've done that sort of stuff, please tell me how, and maybe link videos of how to do that. But the other thing that has happened since the last time I spoke to you all is Christmas, which means I actually got presents. So I got a couple of knitting books from people, and some other things as well. So 2 knitting books. The first is the paperback copy of 52 Weeks of Socks by Lane magazine, and I've had my eye on this for ages, and it's got all sorts of beautiful textured socks in that I just love, all of them, and I want to make. I don't know if you've noticed, but I very much prefer texture to colour work. That's just a personal preference of mine. It's a beautiful book and it's beautifully written. And what are these and why? So it's all very nice. I probably shouldn't be flicking through because it's a book. But there's definitely a few I want to make from here. I'll probably, as I've mentioned, I dyed some yarn up with red onion skins. I'm probably going to make a pattern from here with that. That's the plan, I think. I just need to figure out which one. But I want to finish the Owlie Socks first before I get another pair of complicated socks on my needles. The other thing I got is Knitted Birds by somebody whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, because that is a surname. And I think I stuck this on my wish list. Oh, hobo. Yeah, Knitted Birds. I like birds. I don't know if you've probably noticed this before. I do quite like birds and bird watching and things like that. I embroidered some birds a while back. No idea what happened to them. Embroidery comes and goes with me. I'm much more consistent with knitting, but embroidery has been sort of... Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. So I think this might be fun just to knit toys for nieces and nephews. So, I'd like to think they won't be too hard, but honestly, we'll see. What else? Oh yes, I got, not really knitting, somebody bought me a tiny sew-up owl. So, stuff and stitch the pre-sewn owl body before paper crafting your new companion a card roost to shelter in. So this just looks fun. I love owls. Again, I've probably mentioned it 20 million times. I do love me a good owl. So yeah, I'm going to really enjoy making this. Curled up on the sofa one night. Little fluffy owl. So that's it, I think. Yeah, that's all for now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for making it this far. If you've enjoyed yourself, then please feel free to comment or leave a like. It really helps me understand what people do and don't like about my videos. Hopefully I will have some more videos out in the next month before the next podcast episode. So if you've enjoyed yourself and you want to see more of what I do, then please subscribe. You can also check out the description below for my Ravelry and Instagram. I have been trying to update them, but they are still a bit behind, in all honesty, with what I knit. If you have any questions or suggestions, please post them in the comments below, because any suggestions and tips are always appreciated. And have a lovely day.